Hello, I'm Bruce DuPoit. Coming up, Donald Trump gets thumped.
You ran up mountains of debt as well as losses using other people's money, and you were forced to file for bankruptcy not once,
I never filed
not
for
twice,
bankruptcy.
4 times.
Carly Fiorina and other Republican presidential hopefuls pounding on frontrunner Donald Trump in a raucous marathon debate at the Reagan Library in California. How will the encounter alter the sprawling battle for the GOP nomination? We've got an all-star panel here in studio. Politico's Roger Simon is with us, along with Eleanor Clift of the Daily Beast and Kevin Cirilli of The Hill. Then, troubling local cases in which a lack of daycare options leads to death. We'll talk with Prince George's County's top prosecutor, State's Attorney Angela Alsobrooks.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DuPoit.
Wow, we've got a great lineup today. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So glad you made us a part of your day. It was a big night at the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. All of the GOP candidates taking the stage for the second debate with frontrunner Donald Trump in the middle of it all again. The field is still the biggest ever, but some of those hopefuls may not be around for the next on-stage encounter. Our Brad Bell was there for all the fireworks.
Rand Paul shouldn't even be on this stage. He's number 11.
And with that, Republican debate number 2, hosted by CNN, was underway at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. It was a display of one-upsmanship. The poll frontrunner Donald Trump was once again front and center, feisty, and in the bullseye of all his fellow candidates.
He wanted casino gambling in Florida.
I didn't want
Yes, you did.
Totally false.
You wanted it.
The political outsider came out swinging with a smirk right from the start. He tried to make nice with debate newcomer Carly Fiorina about his remarks in Rolling Stone that her face wouldn't bring votes, but the former CEO wasn't buying it.
I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
I think she's got a beautiful face, and I think she's a beautiful woman.
And the debate hit a high note when former Governor Jeb Bush admitted he smoked marijuana.
So 40 years ago, I smoked marijuana. I'm sure that other people might have done it and may not want to say it in front of 25 million people. My mom's not happy that I just did.
Thank you, Senator Graham.
Before the big primetime debate, 4 undercard Republican presidential hopefuls took the stage.
That's the first thing I'm going to do as president. We're going to drink more.
Like Senator Lindsey Graham, using his folksy humor, trying their very best to get some Trump-like traction. It was a high-energy debate with so many candidates trying to prove to the voters that they are presidential, that they have a strong grasp of the issues. And for some, it could be a make-or-break night. The consensus here, it was a good night for Carly Fiorina. At the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, Brad Bell, News Channel 8.
Thank you so much, Brad. And joining us now here on News Talk with analysis, our all-star panel, Roger Simon, chief political columnist for Politico, Eleanor Clift, a columnist for the Daily Beast, and Kevin Cirilli, reporter for The Hill. Welcome all. It is great to have you here.
Morning.
It's amazing, Roger, to think that Carly Fiorina was in the undercard debate. She was on it in that happy hour encounter in Cleveland. Not only has she fought her way onto the big stage, the consensus coming out of the debate seems to be she was the star of debate number 2.
I think she did very well, and I think she did very well by showing that she had more to say than just the financial issues, which are supposed to be her expertise. She showed real emotion talking about social issues, even though it's a position I don't agree with. When she talked about Planned Parenthood, she showed some real personality behind that, some real anger, some real sorrow. I think it got the biggest, if not one of the biggest, responses from the audience.
Real policy chops, some personal stories that were powerful and seemed genuine in terms of their timing. And unlike some of the others, Eleanor, who clearly came with canned zingers, and we're grading now on performance, not on fitness to be commander-in-chief and leader of the free world, but this was a debate, so we're doing, debate analysis. She seemed to hit on virtually all cylinders. Was that your takeaway?
She excelled. I look at her, she's an alchemist. She has turned a rather leaden business career and a failed Senate race into absolute gold on the campaign trail. I think what's going to happen now is that she's going to get a lot more scrutiny. People are going to take her seriously. And I thought she played it a little fast and loose with the facts around the Planned Parenthood issue. And for people who are on the other side, that's going to be a real turnoff.
Kevin Cirilli, we expected there to be a different approach to Donald Trump, and there was. Instead of the fear that was so palpable in the first debate, and on the campaign trail generally up until now, the focus in debate number 2 was clearly, we have to take this guy on if we're to take him down.
You know what was interesting about Carly Fiorina's remarks and how she was able to take on the Donald is that she didn't try to out-Trump Trump. She tried to be herself, and she stuck to her own personality while also talking about politics and policy issues. And so especially in the moment where she questioned his casino record, she was able to do it with a narrative and a personality that really was cut through, I think, the television to people at home that said, hey, wait a minute, I see through this guy too. And I think that no other candidate, whether it's former Florida Governor Jeb Bush or anyone else on that stage, has been able to do it. They've all been going for the YouTube social media moment as opposed to actually hitting him by being themselves. She was able to do that. And I do think that in terms of her business record, I think her mentioning Steve Jobs, when you ask her about her business record, she's much better prepared this time around than her failed Senate race.
Well, she got the endorsement from someone at the company that fired her. She must have worked pretty hard to get that. Now, she understands what her vulnerabilities are, definitely. And she's very good at using a personal anecdote. And she benefited from being the only woman. They were deferential to her. You know, a couple of times they said, okay, I let you speak, Carly. Now it's my turn. But for the most part, they let her run pretty unbridled, and she took advantage of it. I mean, I admire her.
Something she won't get
for doing that. And if it's possible she could earn her way onto the Republican ticket, I don't necessarily see her as the nominee. First Republican, first woman Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State. She certainly has made herself into a very credible candidate for a lot of things.
Was last night debate, was last night altering in terms of what has been the story until now, the ascendancy and the ability to defy all laws of politics seemingly as we've known them as regards Donald Trump?
I think it was. I think Donald Trump will continue to be the story. I don't expect that last night will change the polls greatly. Polls tend to be lagging indicators, not leading indicators. I think he'll still emerge on top. But I think he showed himself to be vulnerable. He came with his prepared lines and his smirks. And what I think really hurt him, oddly enough, was that it wasn't his audience. This was an audience of well-heeled, upscale Republicans from Simi Valley, California, a wealthy bedroom suburb of Los Angeles, and they didn't respond to his lines the same way. And
so in other words, you think he fed off the crowd in Cleveland, and that aspect of it was absent here?
In Cleveland and every other place, but not in Simi Valley that night. And I think it took him aback on his heels a little bit.
Was it inevitable that when it's a 10-on-1, that the person being pounded is going to wear down, particularly in a 3-hour debate? I thought this would have made a great 2-hour debate or 2.5. Instead, it seemed overlong at 3.
I liked it as a political junkie. It gave us a lot to talk about.
But is it somewhat inevitable that if you have 10 people prepared to and in fact pounding on you for that long a time, that you'll wear down, that you'll chafe, that you'll run out of nice? Or is it more that he had an off night?
I think there was a leveling effect that took place last night. I think he's down a couple of notches and a couple of the other candidates are up a couple of notches. I still think he's the leader in the field. I don't think he particularly hurt himself. But I think we've now heard enough from Donald Trump that we weren't sort of surprised. There weren't any new lines last night, and the personal attacks do get old. And I thought Rand Paul responded quite nicely. Are we in junior high? I thought this stopped in junior high. So they got him on a couple of moments. And yes, and in a 3-hour debate, just about every candidate had their moment. And if you watch the whole 3 hours, Jeb Bush didn't seem all that high energy. But he had a couple of really good moments about his wife, about the casino gambling in Florida. I mean, I don't know what all the facts are, but he showed he can stand up to Donald Trump.
I want to ask you, Kevin, about Jeb Bush in a second, but let me open up the phone lines now. I want to get your sense of the debate. What did you think about what you heard? And then sometimes the most interesting thing to talk about is what issues didn't come up in terms of your life and the challenges you faced, things going on in your community that you would like to see addressed between now and November 2016. Boy, it seems like a long way away, doesn't it, for a race that's been going on this long? What didn't you hear that you would like to hear more of, primary and general campaign included, going forward? 703-387-1020, that's our number, and we would love to have you join the conversation. So grab an open line. If you're watching in the 11 a.m. hour, join the conversation at 703-387-1020. We'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. Kevin, what did you see? What did you hear when Jeb Bush spoke? Here's a man who needed a good night, and I'm not sure he got one.
Yeah, I'm not sure he did either. I think there's just this expectation inside the Beltway with he's got all the insiders on his team. He's got like every president of the student council, all of the thought leaders are on Jeb Bush's team, but it's like, okay, when is this moment going to happen? What's the narrative for Jeb Bush? And I really think, and this is where I think the establishment inside the Beltway has not done their homework outside of Washington. I think they are grossly underestimating, Bruce, the amount that people are fed up with Washington. And so I think for too long people have coupled moderate and establishment as if that's the only juxtaposition people can have. You can be a moderate and still hate Washington and be fed up with it. And I think Carly Fiorina really can speak to that notion. But I want to get back to Donald Trump quickly.
Sure.
Last night, when you take a step back, I think it's almost like the first debate was the first season of a reality show that's really popular, like The Apprentice. And then the second season, the ratings start to dip a little bit. And then the third season, it's still relevant, but it's still not number one. And I think that's going to be, it's going to be a very slow demise of Donald Trump. It's not going to be all of a sudden he's at 1%.
Jeb Bush is not comfortable in debate. I just don't think it's who he is. It's not to say he isn't the best guy in terms of qualification, temperament, decision-making in a crisis, the things we want the next president to have. So I separate them completely, this performance art, if you will, versus the gig that all these people are running for. But is he going to, if he's the guy who gets to the nomination ultimately, Roger Simon, is it because he somehow transcends what may ultimately be, you know, he may deliver nothing but meh performances in debate. It's just not who he is.
I think he does a lot of meh outside the debates too. He looks like a man who doesn't really want the job that badly, except he sort of would be embarrassed if he lost. If he's the nominee, and he could be, I think it's because everyone else has exploded. You know, and also the invocation of his brother's name, while it was a nice familial moment, there's a great danger there. He really doesn't want to be the third term of George W. Bush, nor did his specific comment, he kept us safe, really
what did that mean?
True. I mean, he didn't keep two planes from crashing into the Twin Towers on his watch, even though his administration had had warnings about it. It got good reviews because it was a big moment, but it's really, I can just imagine his handlers back in the green room saying, oh no, don't go there.
Agreed.
Yeah, but that's a cardinal rule among Republicans, is that Bush kept us safe because everyone expected a second attack. And they kind of gloss over the fact that the first attack happened on his watch.
At least you make some sense of it. At least you're making sense of it in a way, because when I heard that, I thought, I don't know what they're talking about.
That's what that was about.
And Bruce, I mean, we were talking about how it wasn't really Donald Trump's audience in the room. I think that Donald Trump really did play well to his base after last night's performance. That was Jeb Bush's audience last night in that room. That was the people, the type of people who want Jeb Bush to rise. Meh.
Certainly you get credit for sticking up for your brother, which is pretty close to universal value. Talking with Eleanor Clift, Roger Simon, and Kevin Cirilli. We'll take a quick break here. Back with more right after this.